Something ridiculous is happening today. Men are starting to become more feminized and actually act more like women, whereas the opposite is happening for women. In fact, women are becoming masculinized and they are starting to act like men. Now, this is pretty crazy, and on the surface, it might make no sense, but there is evident proof for this. Men are forced to act more like women because they have to actually basically play by the rules of women. It's even in the damn law. You can be convicted of intentional infliction of emotional distress, which is literally in the law. Yes, this is torts law in the United States. That is actually a thing. Now, I wonder who exactly might be experiencing this emotional distress more often. But besides being baked literally in the law, men are encouraged to express their emotions and be quote-unquote vulnerable. Now, this, again, is a feminine trait, but it doesn't just stop there. Because maybe it could even be Karen over in HR telling you how you shouldn't be talking in a certain tone to your workplace colleagues, or something along those lines. Yeah. But it's the patriarchy's fault. We lived in a damned patriarchy, which only benefits men. Yet what's funny is, even though that this is being verbally said, and quite literally, not even second thoughts on how stupid this sentence is, men are also being disincentivized to participate in much of Western society because it is becoming so feminized. And in this case, and clear obvious examples like women-only workplace benefits, women-only academic benefits, women's criminal sentencing being much lower, and women's health programs receiving much more funding. For instance, breast cancer versus testicular cancer. Now, it seems as if women and men are just having a hard time getting along, and for some reason it just doesn't seem to be working out so well between them. And this is shown also by the divorce rates of marriage today, which, by the way, if you didn't know, that's another benefit in which women have the advantage in court. Yes, divorce court. They have the advantage. Now, in fact, you yourself might even have arguments in your relationship. By the way, in my opinion, there actually shouldn't be any sort of argument in your relationship, because that's a sign of a poor relationship. Or maybe there are feelings or signs in your relationship is just going downhill in some way or another. Maybe the sex is dying down, or maybe there is just a flat out loss of interest. Now, what's even crazier is that even though this might seem like it is the woman's fault, I believe most of the problem is actually caused by the men, which might not make much sense. But when I explain the reasons exactly as to why, as well as some of my other videos, which I've talked about related to this sort of topic, you'll start to understand how a majority of these problems and just the problem itself is actually man's fault as to why women and men just aren't getting along. Now, here's the reason why, the simple reason why, and then afterwards I will demonstrate some examples. Now, the reason why women and men have relationship fallouts is because men are acting like women. Now, you might say, how exactly are men acting like women? That makes no sense. Men are just more masculine and women are just more feminine. Well, innately and by genetics, yes. But if you look at reality and you try to ask that same question again, are they really though?
My name is Kenya. This is Carl, my husband of 26 years, and this is Tiger, my husband of 10 years. In the 12th year of our marriage, Carl and I decided that I was going to have multiple partners.
So we decided to talk about it. Like, what do we do? How do we go about this? And that began a 2-year journey of Kenya and I just kind of discussing things.
Please forgive me, please forgive me.
Bro, there's no way you're literally begging on your knees. On camera too? How do you ever expect your girl to respect you if you're doing shit like this? And don't get me started on the comments talking about, oh, why isn't he crying? He's not trying hard enough. Oh, when he sends the money. Huh? Like, what has our generation come to talking about when he sends the money? Huh?
But it just doesn't stop there, sadly.
Women are acting like men and men are acting like women. Women are chasing careers, money, and multiple partners. Men are seeking emotions, validation, and feelings.
Guys have become the new girls and girls have become new guys because this is what they expecting, and guys have been, wait a minute, what about my feelings? Wait a minute, hold on. She can't just do me like this. And girls like, I hit your friend, what's the problem?
Wow. Yeah.
And the niggas, nah, we trying to be like, oh, I want to be in a relationship. I want to be in love.
I feel it's harder for
Now, the problem is that the relationship dynamics in this case have never actually been like this in history, ever. The relationship dynamics have always had a dom and a sub. It was never a I want equality or maybe a I'm an independent woman sort of dynamic. This never existed in history, and there's a really good reason why. Because women and men are designed differently, especially biologically. Now, women are not designed to be quote-unquote independent for one very simple reason. They are the ones which bear children and raise children, especially during the younger stages. Now, this in and of itself automatically makes women more dependent under one condition: if the child is to be raised correctly. However, it's possible for the child to be raised incorrectly, as well as not being cared for, not looked after, and not given attention, not given certain things, which honestly is really depressing because that's how many children are raised in what I would like to consider terrible households today. That's extremely common. But it is what it is, and I think it's partially why we see so much crazy shit happening today. And I'm not going to talk about that sort of a thing because I'm going to get instant demonetized. But to keep it simple, I'm talking about the school stuff, the crazy school stuff, if you can catch my drift, including kids. Obviously, though, women no longer require a man in order to make money, which takes away some of the man's power, in this case, in the relationship. And this is sort of how natural selection actually is taking place in society, where certain characteristics and traits are actually being selected for. And in this case, many men have either one, given up, or they no longer care. And women are frustrated because they want somebody to lead them, yet they don't want to be told what to do. It's the power paradox.
Want leadership, but don't just like boss me around, you know? Like lead me. Lead me when I'm in the mood to be led.
Now, even though women have entered the workforce, which I do believe to be a pivotal part in causing the conflict between men and women today, the fact that the men are acting as women now, I believe, is the true reason why this is occurring in the first place. True masculine standards from men have changed and also have eroded in some ways. Now, before, being masculine may have been meaning more physically strong, or it might have been related to work ethic. However, masculinity now is something completely different than the past, and a majority of the women are the ones with these traits of, in this case, being more masculine today. Now, the funny part about all of this is that women don't initially actually have any of these traits of masculinity. In fact, they hate, and I really do mean hate, acting masculine. They despise it, and it frustrates them. And I actually believe the only reason why women have any of these traits is usually because the man that they are with has demonstrated a lack of these traits, and the woman will automatically compensate in her subconscious, which she does with shit testing and a lot of us stuff. I'm not going to explain that. That's other videos. And in doing so, it makes her stressed and frustrated because she loses trust in the man that she is with. And when it comes to femininity now, a majority of men are the ones with these traits, and it's the exact same thing. Men don't initially have these traits of femininity and sometimes find it very frustrating acting feminine. And the only reason men are acting feminine is because they end up being brought up in a feminine dominated area and a feminine dominated society, and that exists in tons of areas in society, most of which, by the way, are basically mandatory when it comes to feminine design. So for instance, how school is designed or how the workplace are designed, these are much more feminine oriented areas. The more masculine oriented areas are sports areas, for instance, like a basketball court or just competitions as a general rule, and video gaming areas, which once again, video game areas allow for competition within those specific areas, and they do that much better than sports in my opinion, which is exactly why you see men lean towards these areas really, really heavily, and they are the dominant force in those areas. Now, it's because these areas let men display their abilities. This is incredibly important, especially for younger men and for people who build society to understand. Being incredibly good at a video game, like being challenger at League of Legends as an example, me, or displaying the ability of, for instance, playing basketball on a crowd and being a damn NBA basketball player. That is an example and a display of ability standing out from the rest. Men, especially when they are younger, are usually keen to display the ability that they stand out from the crowd. And these two areas are great examples of men being more competitive by nature. And this is partially why school and how the workforce is designed doesn't suit men as well. It doesn't let them display ability, or it doesn't let them display competency. Now, you might be asking, what exact traits should someone have in order to act like a man, or what traits should they have in order to act like a woman? Now, if you're interested in those, go check those out. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys learned something valuable, and I'll see you in the next one.